than just business news, we're news for business people.
Good morning. You're watching DayBreak on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I am Agam Vakil, and here are the top headlines. South Korea breaks 2 months of relative peace by firing an intercontinental ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. But global markets take the North Korea's latest test in their stride, recovering our initial sell-off. And the US Federal Reserve Chair nominee Jerome Powell tells the Senate Banking Committee that a case is coming together to raise interest rates in December. And the government sets up the GST anti-profiteering body with R.S. B.N. Sharma, who is currently the Joint Secretary and in the Finance Ministry at the helm. But let's take a look at the Asian markets and see how they have been doing, especially after the development over the Korean Peninsula. And there you have it. Well, the Nikkei, as a matter of fact, advancing up as much as 0.5% at around 22,610. So where we are looking at gains. But moving in, North Korea has fired an intercontinental ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan earlier this morning, shattering 2 months of relative peace between the dictatorship and its neighbors. And the US Bloomberg David Tweed has the latest.
Japan said it went more than 4,000 kilometers into the sky, which means it can easily reach the east coast of the United States. We're talking about New York and Washington. Now there's a bit of discussion about whether this missile might have the capability to take a really heavy nuclear warhead on its tip, or whether it's got the ability to re-enter the atmosphere after leaving the atmosphere. So there is a discussion around there. But, you know, the United States is having to come to a stage where it's really going to have to accept North Korea as a nuclear power. I mean, North Korea, we know, has done multiple nuclear tests, and now it's showing it's got an increased technological capability with its missiles.
And the US markets did react to the test before recovering to end Tuesday on a new high. Let's go across to Abigail Doolittle for a little more on the updates in the US markets.
The Dow added more than 250 points in Tuesday's Wall Street session, gaining by more than 1%. The S&P 500 climbed by just about 1%, and it was the tech-heavy Nasdaq that lagged, gaining by just about 0.5%. All three of these major averages, though, did put in all-time highs, so it was certainly a risk-on session, especially considering that Haven bonds and gold were flat as the Japanese yen fell. Now, providing a late-day tailwind for stocks in particular, this was the Senate Budget Committee advancing the GOP tax bill on party line vote. This is something that investors have been waiting for news on, and with stocks climbing, it certainly seemed to outweigh any concerns around North Korea launching a missile test. Relative to some of the top stock performers on the day, tech giants Cisco and Microsoft were both up more than 1%, but some of the big internet names languished, such as Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet. Now, the airlines did very well. Delta, JetBlue, and United and others all up about 2%, and the RV makers climbed too, led by Thor Industries, up 13.3% on a blowout quarter and a positive view on 2018. And finally, in the afterglow, the Black Friday start to the holiday shopping season, lots of retailers rallied, including Macy's, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Lululemon. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
Well, positive cues coming in from there, but well, let's just take a look at what the cues are telling us in here in the markets here. We have Darshan Mehta joining us to take us through all that's happened yesterday and all that we can expect today. Darshan, over to you.
Good morning, Agam. The cues seem to be on the positive side, at least on the equity market. You have news of some missile launches, but that's not disturbing the market because Asia continues to stay strong. The SGX Nifty indicating a positive outlook of almost 30 points gap up opening is something that we can expect. Dr. Reddy's gained almost 1.5% and ICICI was down almost to 0.4%. So that was the ADR crude. Now, as far as crude is concerned, for the third straight session, crude is trading lower ahead of the big OPEC meet. WTI remains below the key $58 barrel per mark in trade. As far as how the commodity basket is closing, base metals ended extremely weak on the LME. Just take a look at some of the base metals like copper and nickel. They were down almost 2%. The other base metals like aluminium and lead, they were down almost 1.5%. You had zinc, which was down almost 1%. Tin was the only one that managed to actually stay afloat, and that also marginal gains coming in. Even commodities trade in China is extremely weak at this point of time. Most of the commodities are down in trade. Aluminium is down 1.5%. Copper is down almost 1% in China. So cues coming in from China are not very, very good. Iron ore is down. Rubber has managed to gain significantly. It's up close to 0.5% in China currently. Gold is trading muted for the second session in a row. Now, as far as fund flows are concerned, FI has net bought in almost just 12 crores in the cash market. NSE provisional data that came in. DIs were net sellers to the tune of 428 crores in the cash market, and we finally gave up the 8-day rally on the Nifty. So FIs have bought in almost 19,600 crores in the cash market. This is the actual data that has happened, and DIs have bought in almost 7,600 crores in the cash market on the month-to-date basis. The Nifty snaps the 8-day winning streak. It ended down by almost 30 points. What actually did well or what didn't do well? PSU banks, oil and gas, and Nifty infra. These were the three indices which led the down as far, which were trading rather weak. Which were the ones that did well? The Nifty mid cap, the Nifty small cap, and the Nifty 50 was flat in trade. So the benchmarks were down in trade, but the broader markets managed to outperform. We were down almost 30 points. What contributed? HDFC Bank, Maruti and IndusInd, Reliance and Infosys, which were the gainers from the previous day. Those were the ones that actually led the fall on the Nifty significantly.
We seem to be seeing a pickup in rollovers. What's the picture when it comes to the futures?
Yeah, so tomorrow is expiry as far as markets are concerned. Let's take a look at how the markets panned out in trade. We were down 30 points. Yesterday's trade, you saw a gap down, or you saw the markets ending down lower. There was long unwinding that was seen. The open interest was down almost 10% on the Nifty. Let's take a look at the Bank Nifty. The Bank Nifty also was down in trade. That also saw significant amount of long winding, trading at a premium of 29 points. Now the VIX moved up. It was up 1% in trade. Not much movement happening because the market has been rather strong. Let's look at the PCR. The PCR actually came in significantly because the market corrected. Put writers started shedding positions and call writers became slightly aggressive in trade. Let's take a look at this is the rollover picture. The rollover picture is at almost 38% rollover currently. So that's the trend we are seeing, and that's down almost 9% from what we saw last time around. As far as the open interest change is concerned, you can see that put writers, since the market came off, started shedding positions at 10,200, 300 and 400, and call writers became slightly aggressive, and that is why the market, the PCR also came down significantly. There are 13 stocks in the F&O band. The only one that goes out is Just Dial. It was down almost 2% in trade, and it comes out of the F&O band, so again will be in focus. Some of the stocks in focus: IGL saw short covering that came in. Open interest was down 10% or almost 40 lakh shares. The counter was up almost 5%. So this is one of the important counters as per the F&O indicators, which moved significantly in trade. So that's the broad cue that you're getting in from the F&O market.
Thanks for that, Darshan. We'll be watching out for that. But we'll move on and take a check at the rupee and the bond market as well. We have Saloni Dhanuka joining us and giving us an outlook on the same. Saloni, good morning.
Good morning, Agam. So the rupee extended gains for the second day in a row yesterday, and it closed at 64.41 levels against the dollar, which is its highest level in over 2 months. Now traders remain cautious ahead of the release of GDP data tomorrow. Now it is expected to expand to 6.5% as compared to 5.7% in the last quarter, according to a Bloomberg survey. Now on the global front, Asian currencies were trading higher, with South Korean won and Malaysian ringgit gaining the most, while the dollar index ended 0.4% higher at 93.25 levels on the back of upbeat consumer confidence data, while the comments from designated Fed Chair Powell lifted overall sentiments. He said that Fed expects interest rates to rise somewhat further and the size of its balance sheet will shrink gradually. Now coming back home, dollar rupee is trading at 64.48 levels against the dollar in the non-deliverable forward market, which indicates a weak opening for Indian rupee in today's trade. Now moving on to bond market, bonds rose for the first time in 6 days as the yields dropped by 3 basis points to 7.03%. And lastly, global funds reduced their rupee debt holdings yesterday. They reduced their debt portfolio by approximately 300 crore according to NSDL data.
So that's Saloni. We'll move on And a week after the cabinet approved the creation of the GST National Anti-Profiteering Authority, the government yesterday appointed senior IAS officer B.N. Sharma as the first chairman of the anti-profiteering body. And the anti-profiteering panel can order price reduction, impose penalty and cancel licenses if required. Nikunj Johri, who has filed this report earlier, gives us all the details.
The Cabinet Secretary-headed panel has appointed Mr. B.N. Sharma as the chairman of the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. There would be 4 other technical members who would also be a part of the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. Remember, this body has a sunset clause of 2 years, meaning this body would not exist after 2 years after it's constituted. Now, just to give a background how the anti-profiteering mechanism would work, there are state-level screening committees which would consider complaints received from consumers at the local level, and there's a standing committee which would consider complaints received at the national level. Once any wrongdoing is found out by the standing committee, it would submit its report to Director General of Safeguards, which would then investigate and find out if there's any wrongdoing and submit its report to National Anti-Profiteering Authority. Now, if National Anti-Profiteering Authority finds out that there's any wrongdoing there's any wrongdoing done by businesses by not passing on the benefit of input tax credit to consumers or not passing on the benefit of tax reduction to consumers, it can order a reduction in prices, as well as it can order returning of the profiteered amount with an interest of 18%. The National Anti-Profiteering Authority can also impose a penalty on businesses and, in extreme cases, cancel their licenses.
Well, that was Nikunj Johri giving us more details on the aspect, but we'll move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Ivanka Trump kicked off the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad yesterday. And this is the first time that India is playing host to the summit, with this year's theme being promoting women entrepreneurs. And Narendra Modi, in his speech, said that India is happy to host the GES 2017 in partnership with the US.
Those who think ahead of that time are sure to be misunderstood. Most entrepreneurs would be familiar with this. The power to think differently and ahead of the time for the betterment of mankind is what sets entrepreneurs apart. I see that power in India's young generation today. I see 800 million potential entrepreneurs who can work towards making the world a better place.
Ivanka Trump also pitched for access to capital and equitable laws for women entrepreneurs. She also said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has proved that transformational change is possible in rising from a humble tea seller to heading the country.
From your childhood selling tea to your election as India's Prime Minister, you've proven that transformational change is possible. And now you're bringing that promise to hundreds of millions of people across your country. Thank you. As President Trump said earlier this year, India has a true friend in the White House. It's incredible to be in this ancient city brimming with transformative technology. Now, your tech centers may even outshine your world-famous biryani.
Now, most of us are very excited by television commercials, or rather we're not very excited by television commercials, and we usually change the channel or hit the mute button the moment they interrupt our favorite serial or move. But the GES 2017, one such innovator has found a way to turn TV commercial advertisements into content that could be used to educate people. Have a look.
My name is Vijay and I am the founder of Study Bros Edutry, which is the world's first TV ad replacer company. So when I say world's first, that it is actually our product, nothing like it exists in the entire world. So what we do, so we have a patent pending innovative technology called Edutry, which you need to connect with your television set. Once you connect it with your television set, it can actually replace your television advertisement with the educational content.
It's biodegradable, it's environment friendly, and it gives a source of livelihood to banana plantation workers. This product that we're talking about is a biodegradable sanitary napkin, and we spoke to the founder of Sathi, who has created it.
We have made world's first biodegradable sanitary napkin, not just biodegradable but natural, from banana fiber. So the product is chemical free, it's 100% compostable and biodegradable. Generally sanitary napkins stand out there in the landfills for more than 500 years because 90% of them are made out of plastic, while this is made out of plant-based materials and banana fiber, which is agro waste. When you throw this out in landfill or you compost it, it takes 3 to 6 months to biodegrade and completely convert into biomass. Why we are doing this thing? Because 86% of women in India are not still able to get the access to something which is of necessity. If I'm a man, I need a razor every day to shave. A woman needs every month this.
And India's telecom regulator came out in support of a free and fair internet. In its recommendations on net neutrality, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India said restrictions or preferential access to the internet should not be allowed. The TRAI, however, left it to the government to decide if any specialized services can be exempted from net neutrality. Bloomberg Queen's Menaka Doshi caught up with TRAI Chairman R.S. Sharma and began by asking him what the regulator's rationale was behind the recommendations.
Overarching principle which actually guided us is essentially the fact that internet should remain an open platform. Nobody owns internet, and therefore internet belongs to everybody. So once having this principle in mind, what we have said is that no internet access service provider will be able to discriminate the access of content on the internet, either by way of differentially pricing it, and as you know, for that we had already issued regulation last February of 2016. Then no internet service provider will also be able to do a discrimination in terms of providing fast lane, throttling, or blocking the content.
You have said no discriminatory treatment whatsoever, but you've made two exceptions to that. One is for specialized services and one is for critical services or critical IoT services, if I may call it that. So can you lay out the principle behind both of these two and when the definitions will be clear?
Yeah, sure. You see, the point is that once you are saying that there shall be no discrimination, this is the overarching principle. Now, obviously, there will be exclusions to that principle. Exclusion as in, certain services may be using the internet protocols, but they may not be, using the public internet. For example, as you know, the public internet is on the best effort basis. And there may be certain services where you have the quality of service specifications done because they are so critical by their very nature. And therefore, they have to be excluded from the provisions of these sort of stipulations of net neutrality. So these are some of the things which should remain outside the purview of net neutrality.
And R. Chandrasekharan of NASSCOM has welcomed the telecom regulator's recommendations on the network neutrality, which upholds the principles of the notion that internet service providers must treat all traffic as equal. Let's hear him out.
So I think what they have done is to very clearly indicate that you can't just include a whole class of services by some broad categorization like saying IoT based services and say that these can be exempted from the no speeding up, no throttling provisions. So I think that the intent here is to indicate that specialized actually means what it says, and it does not want to open the doors wide and allow a whole range of services to come in and through that narrow opening which has been left for very valid reasons.
And on to the stock of the day. ADF Foods will be in focus today after the company reported a strong September quarter earnings. Nikki Mirchandani is here with us to give us all the details. Nikki.
Hi Agam, it's a 18-quarter high profits that we're looking at, but if you look at the top line growth, that's a muted figure coming at 3. The revenues are down by 3% at a number of 48.2 crore in this quarter as compared to nearly 49.8 crore seen in the September quarter last year. Net profit for that matter, that has jumped up 90% at a number of 5.9 crore as compared to nearly 3.1 crore in the base quarter. Margins for that matter, if you look at the operating profit, that's a good show there itself. The EBITDA has risen by 24% at 6.1 crore as compared to 4.9 crore that we saw in the corresponding quarter. The margins have expanded at 12.7% as compared to 9.8%. So what has led to this impressive set of numbers? Well, cost optimization techniques by company along with your higher other income has led to a good set of bottom line performance. If you see the decline in the raw material cost, that's almost down by 13%, and also other expenses for that matter, they have also come down. And however, the key here is other income. That has almost more than doubled to 3.99 crore as compared to a figure of nearly 1.72 crore that we saw in the September quarter last year. A little bit background about what the company does. It's engaged in the business of canned and ready-to-eat food. It has a market capitalization of around 615 odd crore. But then a little concern here for the company is that the promoter's shareholding has been coming off from this company from 54% that we saw in September last year to 38% that we see in this quarter for that matter.
Well, thanks for that, Nikki. We will be watching out for ADF Foods, but there will be several other stocks which will also be in focus on the back of news. We have Shraddha Babla joining us to give us a list of the same. Shraddha, good morning.
Morning, Agam. Of course, among the stocks that we're tracking includes Coal India. Now, this is based on a PTI report which says that the company is considering hiking the salaries of its executives, and that may cost the company close to 800 crores. We also have Swaraj Engines, which will be buying back 2.94 lakh shares. Now, the buyback price has been set at 2,400. That's 20% higher than yesterday's closing price of 2,000. It's the promoters Mahindra & Mahindra and Kirloskar Industries as well, which intend to participate in that buyback, so keep an eye out for that name. A smaller company on the back of order win, that's Technofab Engineering, which has received orders in the domestic water sector which are worth about 281 crores. So with that, their order backlog stands at about 2,000 crores, and about 45% of that is being contributed by the water sector segment that the company is betting big on. And lastly, we're also tracking Somani Ceramics on the back of a bulk deal where Asian Discovery Master Fund sold 1.8% stake yesterday. So all of these stocks to keep an eye out for.
Thanks for that, Shraddha. We'll also be watching out for Paytm Payments Bank, which was formally launched yesterday by the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. Speaking at the launch, Jaitley said that the new payments bank will help improve financial inclusion in the country. And non-executive chairman of Paytm Payments Bank, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, said that they expect deposits to increase going forward.
For the entire banking activity to take place without any commissions having to be paid or any service charges having to be paid, and therefore the cost of operations itself is extremely cheap. This indirectly expands the entire horizon of financial inclusion.
We have a 4% interest if the money walks into the savings account. Straightforward, simple. We have a swipe-in arrangement with a fixed deposit provider where the money that they're swiped in, which is not charged. So it's free to swipe in and free to swipe out, which means that you can move the money to a fixed deposit account, which based on number of days that you are keeping the money can earn more than 7%. That of the 500 million customers, I think the country's benefits and everything else combined can make a $100 account each. So we're talking about 50 billion as a potential deposit market out there. And let's see how much we can take that of that.
Let's also take a look at all the brokerage calls that we have for today. We have Somit Sarkar standing by to give us those calls. Somit.
Good morning, Agam. On the brokerages, the first we have is Jefferies on Britannia. Now they've initiated coverage in the stock with a hold rating and a target price of 4,850. Now the brokerage is expecting pickup in the rural business given the distribution efforts in rural India that Britannia has taken over the past few years. They're expecting the company's overall volume, revenue and EPS to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 8%, 11% and 16% over FY17 to FY20. EBITDA margins have improved around 800 basis basis points in the last few years. So that's the reason they are saying that going forward there would be limited margin expansion because the promotion costs have also gone up for Britannia. Now the rising share in the in-house production and entry into new segment will keep their return on capital employed lower given the higher capex intensity. Now they're expecting the return on capital employed to contract to 30% by financial year 2020 from current 35% in financial year 2017. They have a hold rating on Britannia. They're initiating a hold rating on Britannia because according to them the current valuations have factored in the expected growth going forward. Now they also have a bull case target price of 6,200 where they're expecting the company's volume, revenue and EPS to grow at a CAGR of 12%, 16% and 23% over FY17 to FY20. Second we have is Motilal Oswal on Alkem Laboratories. Now they have upgraded the stock to buy from neutral and have hiked the target price to 2,500 from 1,950. Now they're saying that the domestic business of Alkem Lab will grow at 20% year on year over the next 3 quarters. Now they're expecting such kind of growth for the next 3 quarters on the back of low base of second half of financial year 2017 because it was impacted by demonetization and because of the low base in first quarter of financial year 2018 because of GST related channel restocking. They're also saying that they're also expecting recovery of 8 to 10 days of sales in the third quarter of financial year 2018 due to channel restocking post GST. Now when it comes to margin, they are saying that margins will improve on the back of chronic and US sales. Bottom line will be boosted by lower tax expense because of the new SICKIM plan. Now the new SICKIM plan will see tax benefits to come in financial year 2019 which will boost the net profit of the company by around 10%. Also company is shifting few of its profitable production to the SICKIM plan to make it more cost optimum. Going forward the acute segment will drive stability for the company and the OTC business will offer new growth opportunities for the company. When it comes to the US business, Alkem Lab is expecting around 30 approvals over the next 24 months.
Well, thanks for that, Somit. We'll be watching out for those calls, but there's also lots to talk about over the course of the day, and you will find all the live market action on Bloomberg Quint. But there are also a few stories that you should consider reading on the website bloombergquint.com. Here they are. Pakistan has failed to stop terrorists crossing its borders into Afghanistan even as it has made progress against those who attack inside the country, the top US general in the region said. And senior IAS officer Pradeep Singh Kharola has been appointed as the new chairman and managing director of the disinvestment-bound Air India. Kharola would take over as chairman and managing director of the flagship carrier from Rajiv Bansal, who was given an extension only last week. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Daybreak. All you need to know is up next. Stay tuned to the Bloomberg Quint.